of the Global Manager for the World Bank by video conference. Meaza Geriad-Brin, independent researcher, human rights defender, also by video conference. The Canadian Amhara Societies Alliance. Wazn Yitma Bayin.
Amhara par video
movement. Ethnic Canadians for Human Rights. Simona Jereme, chairperson. Johannes Berhe, member. Security for Justice for Tigrian Canada. Kedain Jebri Mariam, former chair and current board member. Now, in about a few minutes, 4 minutes, you'll be allowed to make your presentation, and then we will go through a period of questions. I'd like to open the debate now, and now let me ask the members. I've read that part. Now allow me.
Unanimous consent to go beyond the 5:30 until 6, and if you would like to go even beyond, I would like to have unanimous consent too. Thank you. Thanks for your understanding. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Johannes Beirut. You have the floor for 4 minutes, please. I would like to ask you to respect the time because we have restriction on time this time, please. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
It's Mr. Samane, not me.
No, Jonas Burro. He called Jonas.
Jonas Burro, okay.
You are muted, sir. You are on mute. Please unmute yourself.
Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, is that right?
Yes. Go.
Okay. My apologies.
No problem.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Chairman. In November 2022, the Ethiopian government and the TPLF signed a ceasefire in Pretoria. Sadly, the humanitarian crisis has not improved. The Prime Minister has launched a new war in the Amhara region on top of an already raging war in the Oromo region. These two regions account for 61% of the nation's population and 87% of its food production. Furthermore, in April 2024, Tigrayan forces opened a new war against Amhara forces, leading to the displacement of 50,000 people. TPLF is preparing to start another war in a second front. In the past, its interventions, the international community has humanitarian and geostrategic reasons to intervene. In the past, its interventions have been focused on Tigray. Two factors explain this. First, the TPLF has a robust international public relations campaign. Second, TPLF digital army terrorizes foreigners who oppose their narratives. The head of Tigrayan government is on the record stating, "We do not care their nationality. We will hunt them down." Hunt they have done. Some of the hunted are Canadians. Today, two international witnesses are testifying confidentially to avoid the wrath of digital terror group. TPLF has effectively silenced foreign experts. As a result, its narratives domain international attention. There is no question that the people of Tigray have suffered unimaginable atrocities. So have the people of Amhara and Afar. The international community must not become an arbiter of genocide claims and counterclaims. It must learn from the Amnesty International. In 2021, Amnesty International issued what it characterized as a compelling evidence for war crimes and crimes against humanity. Their report was based on 41 survivors and 20 eyewitnesses. 2 weeks later, a senior Amnesty International official admitted the evidence was false. When 61 witnesses repeat the same false story, it's obvious that the story was scripted and asserted to boost TPLF's genocide allegations. This did not stop the New Lines Institute from referring to the proven false evidence 11 times. Further, the report extensively used material compiled by TPLF's foreign advocates. 3 such advocates were referred in the genocide report for a total of 24 times. Meanwhile, prominent foreign experts with differing views were completely shut out. The New Lines Institute's report on genocide in Tigray is based on unverified information at best. At worst, it fails to pass the test of impartiality and ethical integrity. In the best of circumstances, its utility does not go beyond making a case for unfettered international investigations. This committee can have an enormous positive impact on the lives of all Ethiopians by advocating for such investigations of an international investigation by credible and mandated UN agencies. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you for respecting the time. Now I would like to invite Mr. Meyaza Jibril Medhin. Mr. Jibril Medhin, you have the floor for 4 minutes, please.
Thank you so much, Chairperson, and I appreciate the committee for inviting me to provide an update on the dire circumstance in Ethiopia, but particularly in Tigray. While the world's attention has moved away from the conflict in Tigray after the 2020 cessation of hostilities agreement, the state-led genocide against the people of Tigray persists. The Ethiopian government has the people of Tigray in chokehold, with Amhara and Eritrean forces continuing to commit crimes against humanity and what we believe is a state-led genocide in occupied parts of Tigray. 40% of Tigray to date remains under the illegal occupation of the Amhara forces and the Eritrean forces. In areas where these forces are present, human rights violations continue in great violations. Particularly in the bordering area between Eritrea and Ethiopia, Eritrean forces continue to sexually violate Tigrayan women in order to further terrorize the community. This also puts a very critical risk on the minority groups of Europe and Kunama, which are very small in number and are facing real extinction. We call upon the Canadian government not only to put pressure on the Ethiopian government, but also to impose sanctions on the Eritrean government so that the people who have continued to suffer gross violation of human rights can get relief. We also wanted to bring your attention to the fact that the Ethiopian government, alongside with members of the international community, have been putting an immense pressure on the fact that there needs to be disarmament, while ignoring the fact that 40% of Tigray remains under the illegal occupation of the Amhara and Eritrean forces. It is to be remembered that the Pretoria Agreement outlines that disarmament needs to happen in side by side with the full withdrawal of all foreign forces from all parts of Tigray. However, like I said, the fact remains that the Ethiopian government has allowed it for the Amhara forces and Eritrean forces to continue brutalizing the people of Tigray and the occupied parts of the region, particularly in Western Tigray and Eritrea. Human Rights Report, Amnesty International, and others have provided conclusive evidence that violation of human rights continues to persist to date. It is upon the international community, particularly member states of the EU, the United Nations, but particularly Canada, to ensure that human rights are respected no matter when or where. In Tigray, human rights have become a tool to push political agenda by the Ethiopian government. What's happening in Tigray is a catastrophe, a genocide that has been led and orchestrated by the Ethiopian government alongside its regional, international, and local actors, particularly the Amhara militia and the Amhara forces. It is upon the Canadian government, again, to put human lives first and to enforce and push for the Eritrean government to leave the territories of Tigray, but also for the Amhara forces alongside the Ethiopian government to be held accountable using international mechanisms. The circus that the Ethiopian government is leading under the guise of transitional justice does not have legitimacy nor acceptance by the people. Survivors of the conflict-related sexual violence, the massacre, man-made famine, and other atrocities in Tigray continue to call for internationally mandated justice and accountability mechanisms so that they can have a chance at getting redress. The world, particularly countries like Canada, have failed the people of Tigray in averting the genocide, but they have the chance to ensure that they get justice for the crimes that they sustain at the hands of the Ethiopian, Eritrean, and Amhara militias. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Also, thank you for respect. Yitla Bayan from Canadian Amhara Society Alliance. You have the floor for 5 minutes, please. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I would like to thank also the committee members for inviting the Amhara voice in this hearing. Speaking of the current situation in Ethiopia, there is only one war conducted under state of emergency, which is the war on the Amhara people that started in April 2023 and was launched in a coordinated manner by the Abiy regime, Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, and Oromo Liberation Army, OLA, following the war in North Ethiopia. For more than 13 months, the Abiy regime subjected the Amhara people throughout Ethiopia to an unlawful state of emergency and put them under siege. As a result, thousands have been arbitrarily killed, subjected to weaponized rape, collective punishment, hate speech, and profiling, arbitrarily imprisoned and held under cruel, inhumane, and degrading conditions. Civilian infrastructure, religious and cultural sites have been deliberately targeted, including those protected as World Heritage Sites. The use of schools as a military camps has forced over 4.1 million children out of school. Millions in need are not receiving humanitarian relief. TPLF, in a clear violation of the cessation of hostility agreement it signed on November 2, 2022, launched attack in Raya and Talant areas since April 12, 2024, committing ethnic cleansing, where scores of civilians are killed and young children are burned alive. Ethnic-based attacks have continued in Oromia region. On May 31st, 2024 alone, Oromo Liberation Army militants killed and abducted Amhara civilians in West Shoa zone. All these coordinated attacks by the Abiy regime, TPLF, and OLA demonstrate a pattern of deliberate acts which have the hallmarks of genocide, war crimes, and crime against humanity. Considering the imminent existential threat and after exhausting all peaceful venues in response to the ongoing genocide, the Amhara people had no other option but to exercise their human and legal rights to self-defense, led by the heroic Fano movement. The Amhara Fano represents a diverse cross-section of the Amhara society, including farmers, business people, civil servants, medical doctors, engineers, university professors, and school teachers. In less than a year, the Fano movement has gained control of 90% of the Amhara region, established democratic interim administrations, and brought peace to areas under their control. Here is our recommendation. We urge the Canadian government to explicitly condemn the Abiy regime for its atrocities against the Amhara people and take urgent measures as: 1, demand the Abiy army and TPLF forces leave the Amhara region immediately, demand ending telephone blockouts, including internet in the Amhara region, allow aid organizations in the Amhara region to provide humanitarian assistance, pressure countries such as United Arab Emirates and Turkey to stop supplying weapons, including drones, to the Abiy regime, refrain from supporting the so-called national dialogue and transitional justice process promoted by Abiy regime to prolong its stay on power and avoid accountability for heinous crimes it committed. Impose sanctions against the Abiy regime, including economic and diplomatic. And lastly, refrain from funding the Abiy regime, TPLF, and OLA directly or indirectly. It is worth noting that last month, the Canadian Minister of International Development, the Honorable Ahmed Hussein, announced 14 million Canadian dollars to support disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration. TPLF proudly uses such funds to reinvade Amharas. As Canadian citizens and taxpayers, the Amhara diaspora strongly opposes Canada's promoting double standards in its policy toward the Amhara people. Instead, we urge Canada to make a meaningful shift in its policy and act.
Please wrap it up. Time is out, please.
To stop genocidal war on the Amhara people and promote genuine peace, democracy, and justice in Ethiopia. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now I would like to invite Mr. Semana Jemel, President from Ethio-Canadians for Human Rights. You have the floor for 5 minutes, sir. Go ahead.
Ethio-Canadians for Human Rights makes a special reference to human rights violations in the Amhara and Oromia regions. Ethiopia's crisis stems from the 1995 constitution that changed administrative borders from a unified republic to a federation of ethnic regional states drawn on ethnic fault lines. Unlike Canada's democracy, Ethiopia's constitution grants rights to ethnic groups over individual rights. Ethnic federalism is troubled with inconsistencies, as ethnic communities don't live in discrete homelands. Ethnic homelands had endless conflicts among 85 ethnic groups that coexisted for centuries. After 3 decades of experiment of ethnic federalism, Ethiopians were fed up of it. In 2018, Ethiopia and the international community welcomed Prime Minister Abiy with euphoria. Hopes for change and reform were further emboldened when the Prime Minister received the Nobel Prize in 2019. Regrettably, the unfortunate Ethiopians got neither peace and security nor political reform. Between 2018 and 23, there were 5,000 clashes, indicating 1,060 conflicts a year as reported by BBC, of which 58% happened in the Amhara region alone. Conflicts cripple government functions as 65% of the country is out of regime's hands. Land transport to regional capitals is risky or closed for traffic. Due to the state of emergency, the Amhara region atrocities are committed against Amharas, particularly in schools, churches, and mosques. Drone attacks have been a hallmark of government campaigns. The emergency subjected activists, journalists, and religious leaders to disappearances, executions, and detentions. Amharas who lived in harmony in all parts of the country for centuries are brutally killed, demonized, labeled, and displaced, leading to ethnic cleansing and genocide. Human rights abuses are appalling in the Oromia region, where Amharas are slaughtered like a chicken, as reported by The Guardian. Killings and wanton human rights violations are concocted and acted by government authorities, as chronicled by the U.S. Ethiopia 2023 human rights, often against international humanitarian law and Ethiopian constitution itself. Human Rights Watch reported that National Defense Forces massacred scores of Amhara civilians in the Amhara and Oromia regions in what the European Center for Law and Justice called it the Marawi, Burayo, Shashamane, and Metakal massacres, and so forth. Amhara farmers, the historical breadwinners, are denied fertilizers. It is a means used to starve the people by political fiat. This happens when the United Nations reported over 30 million people are needing urgent food assistance. The intent of genocide is amplified with the government of Ethiopia threatening to slaughter thousands of people overnight and warning its opponents of a consequence deadlier than the Red Terror of the 70s, which the African Union reported over 700,000 killed at the time. The fighting, anarchy, and genocide may soon be internationalized. Cognizant of the dire human rights situation in Ethiopia, we recommend for Canada, a home for over 100,000 Ethio-Canadian taxpayers, to call the government of Ethiopia release Amhara and Oromo parliamentarians arrested unconstitutionally. For example, Christian, Johannes, Taye Denda, and Dr. Kasa, and release all Amhara, Oromo, and all political prisoners, journalists, activists, and opinion leaders, and lift the state of emergency in the Amhara region to establish an all-inclusive transitional government. Stop meddling in religious affairs and guarantee citizens' right to religious freedom. And for Canada, we should unequivocally condemn the government of Ethiopia's despicable killings of rape and marginalization of Amhara women, girls, and mothers. And Canada must immediately work to save lives by providing emergency humanitarian assistance to the Amhara people who suffered more than any other region. Canada that helped Ethiopia...
Can you wrap it up, please? Time is over. Can you wrap it up, please?
Thank you.
Thank you. And now I would like to invite Johannes Berhe, I would like to invite Mr. Kidan Jebre Mariam, ancien président, membre actuel du conseil d'administration, for 4 minutes, please. Mr. Kidan.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. My opening statement focuses on the situation in the Tigray region of Ethiopia. During the 2-year war, from November 2022 to November 2022, in the Tigray region of Ethiopia, about 1 million civilians have been killed, more than 120,000 women have been raped, about 2 million people have been internally displaced, more than 100,000 persons have been externally displaced, socioeconomic infrastructure, including health facilities and educational institutions, factories, and small industries.
Excuse me, we have point of order. Yes.
Just so it's not distracting, the bells are going, which we would normally pause. I move that we continue, and we can just vote on our apps.
Okay, let's go. Thank you, Mr. Lake. Excuse me, you could continue, sir.
Thank you. More than 100,000 have been externally displaced. Socioeconomic infrastructure, including health facilities and educational institutions, factories and small industries have been destroyed by the joint forces of Ethiopia, Eritrea, and Amhara region. It is reported by the International Commission of Human Rights Experts on Ethiopia, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, New Line Institute, and the U.S. Department that war crimes, crimes against humanity, ethnic cleansing, and gender-based violence have been committed by the joint forces. I believe that the degree of atrocities, massacre, rapes, and drone attacks, siege and blockade of basic services that the people of Tigray faced was unprecedented and so horrific and amount to genocide. According to the Genocide Convention in the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, Article 6, genocide means any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part national, ethnical, racial, religious groups such as A, killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, C, deliberately inflicting on the groups, and so on and so on. In the interest of time, I'm going to proceed to the atrocities committed in the Tigray region of Ethiopia clearly meet the above definition of genocide. Tigrayans have been killed, massacred, based on their ethnic identity. Tigrayans, women and girls have been raped, gang raped, causing them physical and mental harm, and denied access to all basic human needs, including food and medicine, deliberately inflicted on the Tigrayan children, women, girls, boys, elders, condition of life calculated to bring physical destruction, incited hate propaganda by the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed that Tigrayans are daylight hyena, cancer, and weeds, and by Daniel Kibret, who is an advisor of Abiy Ahmed, cited that Tigrayans as evils and ghosts and must be exterminated from the face of the earth and erased from our mind. During the rapes and gang rapes, the rapists put unimaginable objects with the intention to damage Tigrayans' women, girls, and girls' productive organs to prevent them from giving birth. As reported by Human Rights Watch, Tigrayans in Western Tigray were told by Colonel Dameka Zaudu, who is the head of the security in Western Tigray, and his allies, we will erase you from this land. Pekka Haavisto, the European Union's special envoy.
Excuse me, time is out. Can you few seconds to wrap it up, please?
He said that Tigrayans will be wiped out. Tigrayans will be wiped out for 100 years. Thank you.
Thanks for all witness. Thank you for your good intervention. And now I would like to open the floor for a question and answer. We start with Mr. Majumdar. Mr. Majumdar, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all for describing what is obviously a very complicated conflict affecting many communities. Let me start with Jonas Biru, if I might. You've been a long-time author about the Horn of Africa and its issues therein. And you've been warning about the kind of violence we've seen unfold for years. So let me ask you, what would you say is the strategic asset that is Ethiopia in the Red Sea region? The conflict in this country has the potential to spill out with much larger consequences for the region geopolitically and geoeconomically. Could you perhaps take a step back and give us a picture as to what's really on the line here and who some of the players might be?
Thank you so much. Yes, I think about 10% of the global trade goes through the Red Sea, and about 40% of the trade between Asia and Europe is channeled through the Red Sea. And Ethiopia is an anchor nation because of its size and population to the entire Horn of Africa. I believe the European Union representative for the Eastern African countries once said, Ethiopia is not like Yugoslavia. It doesn't implode in. If Ethiopia collapses, the whole region would collapse. So this is really a very serious catastrophe in the waiting. But beyond that, beyond the trades, 128 million people are facing a threat of genocide. What we are hearing here, unfortunately, my Amhara and my Tigrayan friends, you hear them, the Tigrayans saying everything that has been done to them, but they say nothing about what they have done. The same thing with my Amhara friends. They talk about the atrocities they faced, but they do not say what the Amhara has done. If you look at international reports, no one is a victim here. Each is a victimizer and a victim. Until this kind of mentality from our compatriots, particularly in Amhara and Tigray, stops, this crisis will continue. And at the end, it is the people of Tigray and the people of Amhara suffering. We have seen the Amnesty International reports. We have seen all have been condemned of crime against humanity. We have heard this genocide, each group throwing like a common word. The only organizations that came close to announcing genocide was the last report by the new institute, and anybody who has read it can tell, as I said, it reads like a TPLF document. So what the Canadian government and the world can help is perhaps not to invite us to come and complain about what happened to our people, but maybe to find a common ground. How can we move away from this, claims of genocide and counterclaim and help solve the problem with help from the international community? Thank you.
Do I have a minute or two? 2 minutes. Okay. 1 minute. So I'll be brief, Jonas Biru. You used to be the Deputy Global Manager of the International Economic Comparison Program at the World Bank. You have tools to think about different models of governance. You have a minute. But the origin story of Ethiopia's ethnic federalism lasted for 27 years, and then it broke. What broke?
Well, it broke because it moved sovereign power from we, the people of Ethiopia, to we, the tribes of Ethiopia. After 3 decades or 30 years, Ethiopians started to think as ethnic groups or tribal groups. And that's exactly why we witnessed here today. Our Amhara friends are talking about only Amhara. Our Tigray friends are talking about only Tigrays. So we have federalism in Canada, in many parts of the world. The Ethiopian federalism is unique in the sense that it treats the people of Ethiopia as peoples, as if they are different. So that created this animosity across ethnic groups. And we have now come to a point where we cannot solve this process by ourselves because we have locked in a permanent kind of political equilibrium from which we cannot break by ourselves.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Time is over. Now I invite Mr. Ali Ehsasi to take the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all our witnesses for your testimony. I think it would be fair to say that we had all hoped that the agreement in 2022, the Pretoria one, would put an end to the suffering throughout Ethiopia, but that unfortunately has not been the case. To start off with, if I could ask Mr. Bayane, why is it that the Amhara did not participate in those peace negotiations?
Thank you very much. That's a very important question. The Amharas have done a lot of efforts to be part of the agreement discussion. but they were refused. They were systematically excluded from participating on that Pretoria agreement. And that's exactly why the cessation for hostility agreement has failed. It failed, and it's doomed to fail from the get-go because it is very excluding the Amharas and other key partners. It was an agreement between the Abiy regime and TPLF. And the Western world, including Canada, has to take full responsibility in that role. Had it been all-inclusive, that would have been brought maybe, potentially, a better outcome. And what we see now, the war on Amhara, and what we witness now is a mere reflection of the failure of the COHA.
So now if I could go to Mr. Jemere. Is it your contention that the Amhara were excluded as well? And to the extent that that may be your response, is there an opportunity for a sequencing where there would be discussions between the central government and the Amhara?
Are you asking me about whether there is a discussion between the Amhara and the central government?
Why did they not partake in the peace negotiations that led to the secession agreement of 2022?
Well, this is a very interesting question because I think we have to pose this question to the government of Ethiopia and to the TPLF. But the reason why they did not invite the Amhara colleagues is that they think that they are very contentious and they think that they are the oppressors and they want to exclude them because they have been excluding them from time immemorial since the TPLF government.
Before that peace agreement with the central government, the Amhara got along, correct?
No, sorry, my hearing aid is not cooperating.
Sure.
I can take it up. Yeah. Okay. As Mr. Beyene said, the Amharas were not included in the discussion. And after all, who said Amharas should be participating in the discussion and the Tigray group must be participating? If it is a peace deal, if it's a peace agreement, it must have involved all parties, all stakeholders that have participated in one way or another in the conflict in northern Ethiopia. Like the Amharas were affected because of the war, the Afar region, another region adjoining the Tigray region, was affected. Neither the Afar or the Amhara groups were invited. And it's because the Abiy government wanted to take advantage of the international pressure so that he could make a backdoor deal without even further discussing the...
So you're saying there was no invitation and you couldn't partake in that?
Yeah.
So if someone were to say that the Abiy government should enter into negotiations, what would the preconditions be?
Well, I can't speak on behalf of the Amharas. I'm here representing Ethio-Canadians.
Generally, where you follow what is of concern.
What would have been the best forum for the peace deal would have been to bring all stakeholders in the country, including the Oromo Liberation Army. There are different factions of the Oromos, including the TPLF or other Tigrayan groups, all Amhara groups and Afar regions. Even in Gambela and Benishangul, there are some groups. So all those stakeholders must have been put together to discuss the national issues. That would be an Ethiopian solution, a win-win solution.
Thank you.
If I could add here, we don't understand why the Amhara was excluded. It's not only the Amhara who is excluded. It is the Afars who are also excluded because the Northern War affected both the Amhara and the Afar region as well as Tigray. So the reason why the government of Ethiopia and the TPLF people excluded Amhara and Afar, it is beyond us. We couldn't be able to understand the reason.
Fair
and if you don't bring both, then there is no reason of any negotiation at all.
And Mr. Biro, if I could go to you to ensure that these discussions do move forward, to ensure that the hostilities that we have seen over the course of the past 2 years do not continue, what is required? What is the path forward? I'm sorry, we can't hear you, Mr. Biro.
I think Ethiopia's political problem lies with three tribal groups, Amhara, Tigray, and Oromo. But Ethiopia has 84 different tribes or ethnic groups. The only way this process can move is moving the center of gravity of the political process away from Amhara, Oromo, Tigray nexus. Historically, these groups have animosity, particularly animosity that has gotten worse over the last 30 years and since the Tigray or the Northern War. So what we see when we bring these groups together, when now we say, oh, Amhara should have been involved in the process, I don't think that would have made any difference. The platform needs to change. The paradigm needs to change outside of the current tribal issue so that the people we bring to the table are not talking about my people.
Excuse me, time is out. Please, can you not? Sorry, thanks.
Okay, pretty much. Thank you.
Alexis Brunel-Duceppe to take the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Merci à tous les témoins.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks to the witness. I think it's very obvious today that we haven't had much time for questions and answers. Ms. Gerimariam, I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce your name correctly. Is it the Tigrani people are saying that they are under genocide and murder, and what of the Amhara people? Are they not suffering as well?
On ne sera pas touché par ça, hein? OK, merci.
Thank you.
OK.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for the question. The Tigray people have indeed been under the state genocide since November 2020. However, we do recognize the fact that there is no peace and stability across the country, including in Amhara. We do understand civilians across the country are being targeted by the federal government alongside different political actors in the country, which is why we continue to call for an internationally mandated justice and accountability mechanism that would not only look into the crimes that are being perpetrated across the country, but also hold the actors accountable. That is why the Tigray people, alongside our academicians, intellectuals, have been pushing for the mandate of the ICRI to be extended. However, fellow Ethiopians have been working against that, but it's really encouraging to hear people being interested in justice and accountability, because I do agree with the fact that people in Amhara, Oromia, and Tigray are suffering, but let's not confuse the fact that the people of Tigray have faced a genocide that has resulted in the massacre and deaths of over 500,000 people, and the people of Tigray still continue to be under the illegal occupation of all warring actors. And I also wanted to bring to your attention the fact that Alemti and Raya are indeed parts of Tigray. They do not belong to the Amhara region, and hence why there isn't really any proof that there is a continued massacre laid against people that are not from Tigray in those particular areas. But all of this can be settled if there is an internationally mandated independent mechanism that will look into the crimes that are being alleged here today.
C'est à vous, Monsieur Kidane.
Mr. Kidane, go ahead.
Mr. Duceppe, I think it must be understood that the people of Tigray was under 360 siege. Tigray was under siege. That must be clearly understood. During that siege, from every direction in Ethiopia, the Amhara forces, the Oromo forces, the Afar forces, and the Eritrean forces, the Somali forces, and of course the Eritrean force, the Ethiopian forces, all of them were against Tigray, and Tigray was under siege. It was blocked. Internet was blocked. All basic services were blocked completely. So that's why the situation of Tigray is very different in terms of the intensity, the degree of atrocities, and also it is only the Tigray that foreign forces came to fight to commit genocide against the people of Tigray. Not in Amhara, not anywhere. But I agree, I sympathize that there is no peace. The Amhara people, I have sympathy for the Amhara people and for the Oromo people. But the thing is, it must be understood that genocide has been committed on the people of Tigray. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur Kigane. Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Kede. Mr. Biru, you spoke of incorrect reports from the New Line Institute because they were based on false testimony or testimony which seems to be quite far-fetched. Human Rights Watch, on the other hand, Amnesty International, the U.S. State Department have also provided reports. Do you think that these other organizations were mistaken in their conclusions?
All the other international organizations, what they have done, what they have said is, when it comes to atrocities in Tigray, the Amhara, the Tigrayans, and the Eritreans, the Amhara, and the federal government have committed war crime, crime against humanity, and crimes of starvation and war as a tool, as a war tool. In the meantime, the same institutions have said the Eritrean forces did exactly the same. Actually, the Amnesty International says Tigrayan forces do not have an iota of humanity.
Can you wrap it up, please?
Okay. But when it comes to genocide, no credible report has come claiming there is a genocide in Amhara or genocide in Tigray.
Donc rapidement, excusez-moi, j'ai pas beaucoup de questions, je veux pas être impoli.
So I don't mean to be rude. Just a quick question. All the interveners are equally responsible, or is one more guilty than the other?
Quickly,
Is this for me?
Yes.
Yeah. This is why I say the international community should not be in the business of arbitrating genocide and counter-genocide claims. What we need is an international investigation. So now what we see is Tigrayans and Amhara activists claiming a genocide was committed to their people.
Thank
no
you.
credible international organization has come and claimed, except for activists of this group.
Thank you for your answer.
Helps the country.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Mr. Yon, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please. Thank you.
Thank you to all the witnesses for your important testimony, your courage, and for representing so many people that are just been subjected to terrible human rights violations and the terrible atrocities that are happening in Ethiopia. I know that, Mr. Berhe, you haven't had a chance to speak yet, and your group, the Ethio-Canadians for Human Rights, it represents really a true cross-section of Ethiopian ethno-linguistic groups. And we heard about the failure of the Pretoria Agreement, the inner conflict. We're really hoping, I think, at this committee today is how we can best support, getting peace and stability in Ethiopia. Maybe you can talk about the situation in Ethiopia, that it's so dire, and your view, and what is the best way forward to resolve the country's political ills?
First of all, I share with Ms. Maza and Mr. Kidari, we share the same heritage. And what I see the claim in terms of genocide in Tigray or any other place, sometimes it misses the point. First of all, they are entitled to their own opinion, but they are not entitled to their own facts. The facts on the ground is completely different. At this time, there is a cessation of conflict in Tigray, and the TPLF has total control in Tigray. Yet, there is famine in Tigray, and they still accuse the other parts of Ethiopia, like Amhara or Afar. So the sole responsibility when it comes to Tigray at this moment is on TPLF. As a matter of fact, TPLF is with the Abiy government. They are the deciding factor now. So we cannot talk. This is what disappoints me. They don't talk what is happening now to Tigrayans. They are suffering now, the famine. So TPLF for the last 30 years was in power. 27 years was in power in the central government. So the sole power for the last 30 years plus in Tigray is the TPLF. Are Tigrayans better off now than 30 years ago? No. They are worse now. And the sole responsibility is on TPLF. And they are not partner in peace. And if we want peace, we have to make sure that, first of all, Tigrayan and Amhara, they share culture, and they have been living for years, for centuries together. And most Tigrayans, they go to other parts of Ethiopia to make a living. My family, they went from Tigray to other parts of Ethiopia, and they lived peacefully. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that. Mr. Kabede, can you talk about, the Ethiopian constitution in 1995? Is that the root of the problem here with Ethiopia? If so, what needs to be done?
Thank you for the question. Well, the root cause of the current crisis in Ethiopia is the constitution that was adopted in 1995. As Dr. Buru said, it entitled nations and nationalities full rights while denying rights to individuals. In which part of the world can you tell me a constitution beginning with we, nations and nationalities of this country? Our own country here, Canada, says we, the people of Canada. It does not grant rights to groups or communities. Individual rights are violated because of the Constitution. And in no other country can you find a Constitution that grants secession or independence to ethnic groups. It's only in Ethiopia, Article 39 grants full independence to any ethnic group. And we have a country with a population of 120 with ethnic groups of 80 plus. But the Constitution granted regional statehood to 9 regions. And 9 regions means, can we have 80 plus provinces or 80 plus regions? What would those 9 regions do? So the current crisis is because the Constitution violated the individual rights, and those individual rights have been removed from the Constitution.
Thank you. One more quick question, if I could, Mr. Jamari. Canada provides substantial aid to Ethiopia. The Prime Minister just met with President Abiy. Given the situation of the country now, should Canada stop aid to Ethiopia? What can Canada do in a very short response?
Thank you very much. This is a very interesting question, and I answer it very easily, this one. In my own opinion, and in our opinion, I don't think Canadian government have to stop aid to the Ethiopian people and to the Ethiopian government. But we have to differentiate between humanitarian aid and development aid. In our opinion, I think development aid has to be stopped, whereas humanitarian aid has to be enhanced, because we are interested in saving lives, not in killing lives. That's how I would see it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Gore. Thank you for all witnesses. On behalf of the committee members, and all the staff, we would like to thank you. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for sharing good ideas and opinion. And if you think you will have additional values, idea, or opinion to share, you could always write to the clerk. Thanks for your presence. Now, I would like to suspend in order to go for vote.